Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her palm against the observation deck's cool transparisteel, watching the massive alien vessel dock with Research Station Aurora 9. After 3 years studying xenobiology in the Outer Rim, she thought she'd seen every possible first contact scenario. She was wrong. The docking bay's atmospheric processors hummed to life as the alien ship's boarding ramp descended. Elena checked her tablet one more time, reviewing the sparse intel they'd received. Species designation: Cathinari collective. Primary composition: crystalline silicon hybrid. Purpose of visit: scientific exchange. What the files didn't mention was the sheer scale of their visitor. Elena barely reached the chest of the being that emerged from the ship. 12 feet of translucent, opalescent crystal formed into a distinctly feminine shape, with faceted surfaces. That caught and refracted the station's lights into dancing rainbows. The alien's face resembled carved gemstone, with 2 deep amber formations that served as eyes. When she moved, her crystalline form chimed softly, like wind through glass sculptures. "Dr. Elena Vasquez?" The alien's voice resonated from somewhere within her chest cavity, creating harmonics that Elena felt in her bones. "I am researcher Zara Cathinari. I have traveled very far to study with the renowned human xenobiologist." Elena had to crane her neck to meet those amber eyes. "The pleasure is mine, researcher Zara. Though I should mention, our preliminary reports about your species might have understated a few physical characteristics." Zara's crystalline features shifted in what might have been amusement. "Humans are much smaller than anticipated. Fascinating." Without warning, Zara reached down and gently lifted Elena off her feet, holding her at eye level like examining a delicate specimen. "Your structural composition appears remarkably fragile. How do you maintain cohesion?" "By not being picked up unexpectedly," Elena managed, though she found Zara's touch surprisingly warm despite her crystal nature. "Could you maybe put me down?" "Of course. Forgive me." Zara carefully lowered Elena back to the deck. "Your reaction confirms preliminary data about human stress responses. Most intriguing." Elena smoothed her lab coat and tried to regain her professional composure. "Right. Well, shall we begin with a tour of our research facilities? I understand you're interested in comparative physiology studies." As they walked through the station's corridors, Elena noticed how Zara had to duck through doorways and move carefully to avoid damaging equipment with her crystalline protrusions. Despite her massive size, the alien demonstrated remarkable grace and consideration. "Your species fascinates me," Zara said, her voice creating soft echoes off the corridor walls. "Such delicate construction, yet you explore dangerous regions of space. Your people must possess extraordinary courage." "Or extraordinary stupidity," Elena replied with a smile. "Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference." They entered Elena's primary lab, where various specimens floated in preservation. Tanks and holographic displays showed genetic sequences from dozens of species. Zara examined everything with intense curiosity, her amber eyes seeming to catalog every detail. "You study the biological diversity of our galaxy," Zara observed. "Yet you yourself represent one of the most fragile examples of sentient life. Does this not concern you?" Elena considered the question while powering up her research terminals. Fragility isn't the same as weakness. Humans might be physically delicate compared to other species, but we adapt quickly. Our flexibility often compensates for what we lack in durability. Zara moved closer, looming over Elena's workstation. "Demonstrate." "I'm sorry?" "Human adaptability. I wish to understand this concept better." Zara's crystalline fingers hovered near Elena's shoulder. "May I conduct a small experiment?" Elena felt a flutter of uncertainty, but scientific curiosity won out. "What kind of experiment?" "Nothing harmful. I simply wish to test human response." to minor environmental changes. Zara gently placed her massive hand on Elena's back, applying the slightest pressure. Your species interests me greatly, Dr. Vasquez. I believe our collaboration will prove most educational. As Elena felt the warm weight of Zara's touch, she realized this research partnership would be unlike anything she'd experienced before. The alien's fascination with human fragility seemed to go beyond mere scientific interest, and Elena found herself equally intrigued by this crystalline giant who handled her with such surprising gentleness. Well then, Elena said, looking up into those amber eyes, let's see what we can learn from each other. The station hummed quietly around them as two vastly different forms of life began their first tentative steps toward understanding, neither realizing how profoundly their collaboration would change both their worlds. Zara Kethenari had studied 17 different species across the galaxy, but none had captivated her quite like the small human in the pristine white coat. 3 days into their collaboration, she found herself analyzing Dr. Elena Vasquez with an intensity that went far beyond scientific protocol. In Zara's world of Kethenaros, physical durability determined social standing. The stronger your crystalline matrix, the higher your rank in the collective. Zara's own flawless opalescent structure had earned her position as senior researcher, but it had also isolated her from meaningful connections. Other Kethenari treated her with reverence and distance, afraid that casual contact might damage their lesser forms. Elena showed no such fear. Despite being composed of soft tissue and fragile bone, the human approached Zara with easy confidence, even reaching out to touch Zara's crystalline surface when examining her molecular structure. Your resonance frequency changes when you're curious, Elena observed, running her fingers along Zara's arm. It's like listening to music. The contact sent harmonic vibrations through Zara's entire being. No one had ever described her structural harmonics as musical before. On Ketheneros, her resonance was simply another measurement of her superiority. Humans are remarkably brave, Zara mused, carefully lifting Elena to eye level again. It had become their routine during research sessions, though Zara suspected her motivations were less scientific than she admitted. You allow close contact despite obvious size differentials. Elena settled comfortably in Zara's crystalline palms, showing no signs of distress. Trust has to start somewhere. Besides, you've been nothing but gentle with me. Gentle. Another concept foreign to Kethenari culture. Strength was binary. You possessed it or you didn't. But Elena was teaching Zara that there were different kinds of strength, subtler forms that couldn't be measured in structural integrity tests. On my world, Zara admitted, I am considered perfect. Flawless crystal matrix, optimal resonance patterns, maximum molecular density. But perfection is lonely. Elena tilted her head, studying Zara's amber eyes. Perfection is overrated. Imperfections make us interesting, give us room to grow. Zara gently turned Elena in her palms, marveling at the human's complex biological systems. Your species should not survive in a hostile galaxy. Soft skin, brittle bones, limited physical capabilities. Yet humans thrive where others fail. How? Adaptation, creativity, and stubbornness, Elena replied with a laugh. We're too dumb to know when we're outmatched, so we find ways to level the playing field. As the days passed, Zara found herself spending more time observing Elena's behaviors than recording data. The way Elena's expression changed when solving problems, how she unconsciously leaned into Zara's touch during their sessions, the soft sounds she made when comfortable. All of it fascinated Zara beyond professional interest. One research session, Elena fell asleep while reviewing genetic sequences. Zara carefully cradled the sleeping human, listening to the steady rhythm of her breathing. Such a fragile creature, Yet Elena had traveled across the galaxy to study alien life forms. Her courage was inversely proportional to her physical durability. When Elena stirred awake in Zara's arms, she didn't startle or pull away. Instead, she smiled up at the crystalline giant with sleepy contentment. "Sorry, didn't mean to use you as furniture," Elena murmured. "You are not furniture," Zara replied her, harmonics shifting to warmer tones. "You are precious cargo." Elena's cheeks flushed pink, another fascinating human biological response Zara had been documenting. "Is that your scientific assessment, researcher?" Zara considered the question carefully. On Cathanaros, emotional attachments were viewed as structural weaknesses, flaws in one's crystalline matrix that needed correction. But Elena made her feel something beyond scientific curiosity, something that resonated through her entire being. "My assessment," Zara said slowly, "is that human fragility may be the greatest strength in the galaxy. It requires courage, adaptability, and trust, qualities my people have forgotten in pursuit of physical perfection." Elena reached up to touch Zara's face, her small fingers tracing the faceted surface. "Maybe we can teach each other something about different kinds of strength." As Elena's warmth spread through her crystalline structure, Zara realized she was no longer studying human fragility. She was learning to cherish it. The small human had become infinitely more valuable than any research data, and Zara found herself willing to use every facet of her crystalline strength to protect Elena's beautiful, breakable form. Their research partnership was evolving into something unprecedented between their species. But Zara was beginning to understand that the most important discoveries couldn't be measured in laboratory conditions. Captain Marcus Torres had seen his share of unusual situations during 15 years commanding research stations, but watching a 12-foot crystalline alien gently cradle his chief xenobiologist, like a sleeping child, definitely topped the list. Through the lab's observation window, he observed Dr. Vasquez and researcher Zara with growing concern. The diplomatic implications were staggering. The Cathanari Collective had agreed to this cultural exchange with strict parameters, scientific collaboration only, no emotional contamination between species. Torres had received 3 encrypted messages from Cathanari High Command in the past week, each expressing increasing displeasure with their researchers' behavioral deviations. But Torres's concerns went deeper than diplomatic protocol. His intelligence sources had been tracking unusual military movements throughout the sector. Several aggressive species were watching this human-Cathanari collaboration with intense interest, though their motivations remained unclear. "Captain?" Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chun entered his ready room carrying a secure data pad. "We've received another transmission from the Dominion Collective. They're requesting immediate status reports on researcher Zara's activities." Torres accepted the pad and scanned the message. The language was diplomatically neutral, but the underlying threat was unmistakable. "They want to recall her." "Yes, sir." Apparently, Zara's research methods are considered unconventional by their standards. Through his office viewport, Torres could see another ship approaching the station, sleek, predatory lines that marked it as a military vessel. His stomach clenched as he recognized the configuration. "Chun, run an identity scan on that incoming ship and quietly raise our alert status to yellow." While Chun worked her console, Torres reviewed the classified files he'd been studying. 3 weeks ago, an encrypted data packet had arrived through back channels, warning of a conspiracy involving multiple alien species. According to the intelligence, several galactic powers were planning to use humanity's perceived physical weakness as justification for protective occupation of human space. The plan was elegant in its simplicity: demonstrate human fragility through carefully orchestrated incidents, then position themselves as benevolent protectors. Humanity would become a protected species, controlled, managed, and ultimately subjugated for their own good. Captain, that ship is broadcasting Kethanari military. Codes. Commander Vexthara is requesting immediate boarding permission. Torres felt ice form in his chest. Vexthara was known throughout the intelligence community as a hardliner who viewed interspecies cooperation as contamination. If she was here, the conspiracy was already in motion. Deny boarding permission. Tell them we're conducting sensitive research that can't be interrupted. Sir, they're overriding our access protocols. They have diplomatic immunity codes. Torres watched helplessly as the military vessel clamped onto their docking port. Within minutes, armed Kethanari soldiers would be marching through his station, and Elena Vasquez was completely unaware of the danger heading her way. He activated his personal communicator. Torres to Doctor. Vasquez. Report to my ready room immediately. Bring researcher Zara. Marcus, we're in the middle of a crucial experiment. Can this wait? Negative. This is a priority alpha emergency. Move now. While waiting for Elena and Zara to arrive, Torres reviewed his options. The station's defensive capabilities were minimal against Kethanari crystal-based weaponry. His crew numbered 47 humans against what would likely be a full military detachment. But if the intelligence reports were accurate, surrendering Elena to Vexthara's evaluation would be signing her death warrant. Elena and Zara entered his ready room just as the boarding alarms began chiming throughout the station. Elena looked confused, but Zara's amber eyes immediately darkened to a deep orange, a color Torres had learned indicated extreme agitation in Kethanari physiology. Commander Vexthara, Zara said, her harmonics shifting to discordant tones. She should not be here. You know her? Torres demanded. She is my former supervisor. Vexthara believes emotional connections weaken the collective's purity. If she has come for me... Elena stepped closer to Zara, unconsciously seeking protection from the crystalline giant. The gesture wasn't lost on Torres, despite their size. Difference. Elena instinctively trusted Zara to keep her safe. Captain, what's happening? Elena asked. Torres made a command decision that would either save his station or destroy it. Doctor, Vasquez, you and researcher Zara are about to become the most important test subjects in galactic history. The question is whether we're going to let hostile forces run the experiment. As armed footsteps echoed through the corridors outside, Torres began uploading classified files to both his guests' personal devices. If they were going to survive what was coming, Elena and Zara needed to understand the true stakes of their seemingly innocent research collaboration. The conspiracy to subjugate. Humanity was about to test its theories on human fragility. But Torres intended to prove that sometimes the most fragile things were also the most resilient. Commander Vexthara's crystalline form radiated menace as she entered Research Station Aurora 9's main laboratory. Unlike Zara's opalescent beauty, Vexthara's structure was sharp, angular, with surfaces that seemed designed to cut rather than reflect light. Her amber eyes held none of Zara's warmth. They burned with cold intensity as she surveyed the humans cowering behind their workstations. Researcher Zara Kethanari. Vexthara's voice resonated with harsh harmonics that made the lab equipment vibrate dangerously. You have violated collective protocols. Your contamination ends now. Elena stepped protectively in front of Zara, despite being dwarfed by both aliens. The gesture would have been comical, if not for the genuine courage it displayed. A soft, breakable human shielding a crystalline giant from her own kind. There's been no contamination, Elena said firmly. We've been conducting legitimate scientific research. Vexthara's gaze fixed on Elena like a predator evaluating prey. Doctor, Elena, Vasquez, your reputation precedes you. The human who thinks she can study superior species without consequence. Superior? Elena's voice carried dangerous edge. Superior at what? Intimidation? Because if that's your measurement, congratulations. You win. Zara moved to Elena's side, her own harmonics shifting to protective frequencies. Commander Doctor, Vasquez has done nothing wrong. Our research has yielded valuable data about interspecies cooperation. Cooperation? Vexthara's laugh sounded like breaking glass. You have been compromised, researcher. Your emotional responses to this specimen have clouded your judgment. Elena felt Zara's massive hand settle gently on her shoulder, and she leaned back against the familiar warmth. 3 weeks of working together had created an intimacy that transcended species barriers, but clearly that intimacy was seen as corruption by Zara's people. I am not compromised, Zara stated. I am educated, Doctor. Vasquez has taught me that strength takes many forms. Vexthara approached Elena with deliberate menace, her sharp crystalline edges catching the lab's lights. Let us test that theory. Human, you claim your species possesses hidden strengths. Prove it. Without warning, Vexthara's arms swept toward Elena. Zara intercepted the blow, her opalescent form clashing against Vexthara's angular structure with a sound like a crystal chandelier shattering. Both aliens staggered from the impact. Enough! Captain Torres burst into the lab with the security. Team, weapons drawn. Commander Vexthara, you're in violation of diplomatic protocols. Vensthara straightened, seemingly unaffected by the confrontation with Zara. Captain Torres, I am here to retrieve contaminated collective property and conduct mandatory species evaluation protocols. Species evaluation? We must determine if humans require protective custody for their own survival. Preliminary data suggests they are too fragile for independent space travel. Elena felt the pieces clicking together. This was never about research. Was it? You're looking for excuses to treat humans like endangered pets. Vexthara's eyes brightened with satisfaction. Perspicacious for such a fragile creature. Yes. Several galactic powers have agreed that humanity requires protection from themselves. Your physical limitations make independent existence ... inadvisable. And who gets to be our protectors? Elena demanded. Those strong enough to bear the responsibility. Zara stepped between Elena and Vexthara, her entire form resonating with barely contained energy. Humans do not need protection from us. They need protection from those who would exploit their perceived weaknesses. You see? Vexthara addressed the room as if making a presentation. Emotional contamination has compromised researcher Zara's objectivity. She can no longer evaluate human capabilities rationally. Elena moved closer to Zara, feeling the comforting vibrations of her crystalline partner's protective stance. Maybe rational isn't always right. Maybe caring about someone makes you see them more clearly, not less. Caring? Vexthara's harmonics turned knocking. A flaw in your programming, researcher, easily corrected. It's not a flaw, Elena said, reaching up to touch Zara's arm. It's evolution. Species that care for each other survive longer than those that don't. Vexthara activated a device on her arm, and suddenly Elena felt her knees buckle. Some kind of gravitational field was crushing down on her, testing her structural limits. She could feel her ribs creaking under the pressure. Demonstrate your hidden strength now, human, Vexthara commanded. Elena fought to stay upright, her vision graying at the edges. But she wasn't fighting alone. Zara's arms encircled her, sharing the gravitational load and creating a protective crystalline cocoon around Elena's fragile form. My strength, Elena gasped, is knowing when to trust others. And Zara, she's learned that protecting someone isn't the same as controlling them. The gravitational field intensified, but Zara held firm, her opalescent structure blazing with defiant light. Around the lab, Torres and his security team had their weapons trained on Vexthera, but Elena knew human weapons would be useless against crystalline military armor. Choose carefully, researcher Zara, Vexthera warned. Defend this fragile creature and face exile from the collective, or remember your duty to your own kind. Elena felt Zara's arms tighten around her, the crystalline giant's harmonics shifting to the most beautiful frequency Elena had ever heard, pure, unwavering. Resolve. I choose evolution, Zara declared. I choose to become something better than what I was. Ambassador Rithanela of the Neutral Mediation Council materialized in Aurora 9's conference room with the characteristic shimmer of advanced transport technology. Unlike the angular hostility of Vexthara or the crystalline beauty of Zara, Rithanela appeared as flowing liquid metal, constantly shifting between forms while maintaining a roughly humanoid shape. This conflict ends now, Rithanela announced, their voice carrying harmonics that somehow calmed the tensions radiating from both Kethanari commanders. The Council has been monitoring this situation, and we find the accusations of contamination ... intriguing. Elena remained within Zara's protective embrace, still weak from Vexthara's gravitational assault, but determined to see this through. Captain Torres and his security team maintained defensive positions, while Vexthara stood rigid with barely contained aggression. Ambassador, Vexthara began, this human has compromised one of our researchers. The contamination threatens collective purity. Contamination, Rithanela repeated, their metallic form rippling with what might have been amusement. Or evolution? The Council has reviewed researcher Zara's findings, and they present a fascinating paradox. Rithanela gestured, and holographic displays filled the conference room with data streams, genetic analyses, and behavioral observations. For 3 weeks, we have observed an unprecedented collaboration between 2 radically different species. The results challenge fundamental assumptions about strength, adaptation, and survival. Elena watched the data with growing amazement. Somehow, Rithanela had been recording everything, her work with Zara, their developing trust, the way they had learned to complement each other's abilities. The human-designated Elena Vasquez exhibits classic fragility markers, Rithanela continued. Limited physical durability, low structural integrity, minimal natural defenses. By all logical calculations, her species should have been extinct millennia ago. Exactly my point, Vexthara interjected. Yet humans have not only survived, but thrived throughout the galaxy. They form alliances, adapt rapidly to new environments, and demonstrate remarkable resilience under pressure. Researcher Zara's data suggests that human fragility is actually a sophisticated survival strategy. Zara's harmonics shifted to frequencies Elena recognized as excitement. Humans inspire protective behaviors in other species. Their apparent vulnerability creates bonds that benefit entire ecosystems. Bonds, Vexthara spat. Emotional weaknesses that compromise rational decision-making. Elena found her voice, though it still trembled from exhaustion. Love isn't weakness, Commander. It's the strongest force in the universe. It makes us fight harder, think smarter, and endure longer than we ever could alone. Rithanela's form shifted to a brighter silver. The human makes an excellent point. Throughout galactic history, the most successful civilizations have been those that fostered cooperation rather than domination. You propose we abandon collective superiority for sentimentality? Vexthara demanded. I propose you consider that superiority might be redefined, Rithanela replied. Observe. New data streams appeared, showing comparative survival rates between species that valued individual strength versus those that emphasized community bonds. The results were unmistakable. Cooperative species outlasted dominant ones by significant margins. The Kethanari collective has achieved remarkable individual perfection, Rithanela continued, but at the cost of meaningful connections. Humans, achieve far less individual power, but create networks of support that multiply their capabilities exponentially. Elena felt Zara's grip tighten slightly, the crystalline giant's protective instincts clearly activated by the discussion. It struck Elena how perfectly they embodied Rithanela's point. Separately, they were just a fragile human and an isolated alien, but together they had created something unprecedented. Researcher Zara has not been contaminated, Elena said. Looking directly at Vexthara, she's been liberated, freed from the isolation that your collective calls perfection. Vexthara's angular form seemed to sharpen with rage. You dare lecture the collective on. Commander, Rithanela interrupted gently. Your own biometric readings are fascinating. Elevated stress responses, defensive posturing, aggression indicators. Classic symptoms of fear. I fear nothing. You fear change. You fear discovering that your definition of strength might be incomplete. Rithanela moved closer to Vexthara, their liquid metal form reflecting the commander's crystalline structure. But change is not contamination. It is growth. Elena pushed herself to stand independently, though she remained close to Zara's protective presence. Commander, you want to test human durability? Fine. Test this. I traveled across the galaxy to study alien life, knowing I might never return home. I've spent weeks working with beings who could accidentally crush me, trusting them not to. I'm standing here now, exhausted and outmatched, still fighting for what I believe is right. She paused, meeting Vexthara's burning gaze. That's not fragility. That's courage born from accepting your limitations and choosing to act anyway. Zara's harmonics shifted to the most beautiful frequency Elena had ever heard, pure crystalline music that seemed to resonate through everyone in the room. Elena Vasquez has taught me that true strength comes not from being unbreakable, but from healing after you break. Humans are not weak. They are endlessly renewable. Rithanela's form brightened to an almost blinding silver. The Council's decision is unanimous. This collaboration will continue under our protection. Humanity will retain its independence, and the Kethanari Collective will benefit from expanded definitions of strength and cooperation. Unacceptable, Vexthara snarled. Irrelevant, Rithanela replied calmly. Evolution does not require permission, Commander. It simply occurs. As Vexthara and her military escort departed in obvious defeat, Elena finally allowed herself to collapse into Zara's arms. The crystalline giant cradled her with infinite gentleness, their bond having survived the ultimate test. So, Elena murmured against Zara's opalescent surface, think we'll revolutionize interspecies relations? Zara's laugh created harmonics like silver bells. Elena Vasquez, I believe we already have. Outside the conference room viewport, ships from dozens of species were arriving to witness this new model of cooperation. The fragile human and her crystalline protector had become the galaxy's most important diplomatic breakthrough, proving that sometimes the strongest bonds were forged between the most unlikely partners. In the end, Elena's greatest strength had been recognizing Zara's hidden need for connection, while Zara's greatest power had been choosing love over logic. Together, they were unbreakable,